So, Willie, we meet again, and there's a lot to talk about today. I've got to ask you this. We're going to get into the book and talk all about it. But when you look at the numbers, when you look at Americans and how low the Bible engagement and just the basic understanding of the Bible is right now in this country among the populace, what do you think is driving these record lows in just understanding Christianity?
Oh, well, that's an easy question. I think a lot. I mean, where I'm seeing it, Billy, is actually in the church itself. So, like, just the lack of just knowledge, just reading, and so there's just not a lot of depth there. And I don't know. I've gotten a sense in the last 10 years that there hasn't. It's like we don't see as many teachers either, and so it's like a gap from you have like pastors, you have some messages, but actual deep teaching. Some could be we've done away in most places with Bible class, and so a lot of these deeper teaching ideas are kind of a way of the past, and so now it's a lot of quick verse, quick hit, daily scripture, but not context and all that, and so. And I just think there's a lot. I think generally in the world, I think there's just a lot of distractions, just so many things going on, and just a lot of things that pull you away. And so, it's just not there. And perhaps in the comfort, maybe they're not as much of a need. People feel like so they don't, they're not looking. If you're not, everything seems to be going well, so maybe you don't search, but. I don't know, a couple ideas. I'm not sure what.
You hit on a lot of stuff. I think a lot of people want to blame the culture, and there's a lot of blame to place there just with how secular the culture's gotten, and it's pushing in on the church and all that. But at the same time, there's this whole element, all the things you just mentioned in the church, not maybe being ready to meet those questions that people have, or that confusion or that busyness that people have. And I asked you that because here you are with this book. Now, I'm going to say the title, and you got to correct me if I'm wrong. Gospeler. Do I have that right? Gospeler.
There you go. Yeah,
I fixed it. I love the subtitle though, Turning Darkness into Light, One Conversation at a Time. And you could be writing on any topic you want to write on, right? Lighthearted stuff, heavy stuff. Why did you choose this particular topic?
Well, some of it goes back to what you originally asked me about, just even knowledge of the Bible. Is because that's what I found was that there's a lack of that. And so with the lack of knowing the Bible, there's a lack of what someone would tell someone else about sharing their faith because they're not quite sure, what the Bible says. And so part of it is actually part of that, which was to put it down in writing and show the scriptures that I show to people, and it's only a handful, And so what I searched for in the New Testament was a lot of those conversations when people were first, they didn't know the gospel, and what did they tell them? What was the message from the word that was told, and what was their response? And so, which we can find, especially in the Book of Acts, because you have post gospel, obviously Jesus is teaching, but Jesus, the full gospel hadn't taken place. So like Jesus hadn't been resurrected. So there was certainly a belief there that Jesus was searching for with his followers. But then I was really interested what happened after the resurrection. And so what did Jesus say to do, which we cover that exhaustively, which is Matthew 28, the Great Commission, even Acts chapter 1, which are the last words we have from Jesus before he takes off. And then Acts chapter 2, then what happens. And so kind of put all that together from, I've always had a heart for sharing my faith. Was really inspired. The first chapter of the book is about my parents and their conversion that we mentioned before with the movie The Blind that we put into pictures on a movie. And so that was inspiring. And then what I learned from mom and dad as they walked their journey and shared their faith a lot. So I was able to witness that over and over and over. And then I wanted to put this into practice. And it all kind of came together in book form, ironically enough, through COVID, where I wasn't traveling as much. I wasn't speaking and doing things. And and I got tasked to lead a kind of an evangelism ministry at a local church here, and so I did that, and so I heard from a lot of people what they thought, and probably more glaring was the lack of what they knew, and so a lot of people had the desire to share their faith or talk to other people, or even the desire to have a conversation. They just didn't know what to say. They didn't know where to start. They didn't know, if they were the ones who were supposed to be doing it. And so we started kind of breaking down those walls. And so I was able to be with real people and discuss that. And then, because I was giving them a lot of stories and a lot of the scriptures that I'd learned, and started there. And then I was sharing with another friend about it. And he saw me do it on a whiteboard, and he said, "Willie, I've never quite seen that." He said, "You should put that in a book." He goes, "I think a lot of people would love to know that, and maybe they could get inspired by that." And so it's not the exact way. I mean, it's I think sharing your faith is more of an art. It's not really science. It's not because I can tell two people the same thing, and one person will respond one way and one won't. Paul was saying he was praying for that the mystery of the gospel could come out of his mouth more clearly. And so I think even by him writing that lets me know that it's not always the same. And we find even when Jesus spoke to people and challenged people, it was always different. So it wasn't the same exact, methodology or whatever. And so it's just a way to inspire. I think it's a way to get people back in the Word to study, and so that they can have a conversation, but it leads to more than just a conversation. So it's a conversation with a purpose, with intention of saying, if I can help you with any of your questions, or to at least just hear you out and show that I care about you, get your story, and then maybe lead you to that path to where you can cross that line of faith and have a relationship with Jesus.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes there will be this push toward the prayer of salvation, which I love. I love when somebody says, "I'm going to say this prayer, it's going to be a starting point." But there sometimes tends to be this, "Hey, say the prayer, you're good to go," right? It's like, well, that's the starting point, right, of a relationship that lasts a lifetime. It's not like the prayer is the only thing you do and that's it. And so there's a debate around that often, overemphasizing or even de-emphasizing, the prayer of salvation, which again, I find that to be a really great starting point where somebody recognizes and says, "Hey, I'm a sinner. This is the truth. And now I'm going to move forward in that." I don't know if you want to reflect on that at all, but that's always an interesting conversation in this.
Yeah, I may need about an hour to talk about that, but yeah, I think I don't have a problem with someone saying a prayer for sure. I don't find that in the New Testament, so it's not like I never find that pattern. So I never find, and I would think that would be the way, and that seems everywhere I go around the world. That has, or at least America. That's one of the real common things amongst a bunch of groups of people who have probably different theologies or different ideas, but that's the way. I think it's simple, and I think it's probably the easiest to do, especially in the way we've set up churches and how we set that up. But if you're talking about converting people through the church service, that definitely seems to be what they do. But I don't even know if that's the most effective way anyway, is through a church service, because for one, you're not having a conversation generally with someone. And so someone gets generally at the end of a message about that could not even be about the gospel. It could be about anything. And there's this quick thing. Someone says a prayer or raise their hand. And then I just wasn't so sure. And that was another motivation for writing the book, was I'm not so sure the guy walks out the door and he knows exactly what just happened. And so I certainly know that he probably doesn't know the aspects of, perhaps confessing Jesus as Lord, or, repentance, and what does that mean? And, where's this life at? Where's it heading now? Baptism. Because what I find, Billy, is a lot of these things are never mentioned. And here's the main thing that's rarely mentioned is no one's ever challenged them to go share their faith with someone else. And I find that over and over in the New Testament. It's not, when you get salvation, that's awesome for you, but it's all about sharing it with others. That Jesus, I think he was clear on that, saying, go make disciples, go baptize people, go teach people. Jesus says, I came to seek and save what was lost. When he called Peter, all I can see that he did was saying, I'm going to teach you how to fish for other people. And so, but oftentimes what I hear and what I've seen is I rarely ever hear that. And so then we wonder, well, how are people how do they know that's not some of the expectations of being a disciple of Jesus? And I think it could be as simple as no one ever said it. No one ever told them this is part of the deal. They were like, I said some prayer, and
Yep.
so again, it is what it is. It's not wrong or bad. It's just, to me, it's so simplified, and I fear that a lot of people maybe perhaps stay right there.
Yeah.
They never get past that level, and so we wonder why people don't read their Bible. We wonder why when COVID hits, tons of people just took off and left church and went back in, and perhaps it's this deeper like reading of the scriptures and knowing. So I wrote this book, and when I talk to people, when I have a conversation, trying to turn people from darkness into light, these are the things I want to show them in the Bible. And it's probably the first level, perhaps, in their life of even discipleship, of reading the word and then applying it to your life. And I want them to see that and start seeing where you read the Bible and then actually apply it to your life. And that happens in a conversation, and it could be, it doesn't have to be a long conversation, but it also could be, I've had conversations with people over a decade, that we continue to talk, we continue to study. And so just a little more in depth so that people know what it is, and some good passages they can show people so they understand what that is, because they, if they don't understand baptism, then, but if you don't understand a lot of these concepts, you're probably never going to share that with someone else because you're not sure about what they are itself. And so I think we probably hope that they figure it all out, and as their journey, and I'm not saying you have to know everything for sure, but I definitely want to get some key components of at least what the Bible says. So this is not Willie's opinion. I'm just going to shoot it straight out of the scriptures and say, I tell people this, and this, and then they can make their own decision. And I'm not judging them at all either. And so on. I've heard when I get into their stories, I hear all kind of things. And so I hear, decades old conversions that they've had, or, I made some decision, or I said some prayer, and we talk about where their life is now. And if it's, if it doesn't measure up to what we read in the Bible, like in Galatians 5, where he lays out a clear Galatians 5:19, and that's in the book, and that's where I call that crossing the line. Like there's a line there where he goes, the acts of sinful nature are obvious, and those who live like this will not inherit the kingdom of God. Then he lists the fruits of the Spirit, and so I love that passage because it's a clear line. It's like, are you this or are you this? And so that in the conversation, that's what I'll ask people, and it's as clear as if I ask someone, "Hey, are you married?" And so the expectation would be like, yes or no. It would be interesting to me, Billy, if someone said, I'm not sure. I hope so. I haven't thought about that in a long time. But those are the answers that I hear when I ask someone, do you have a relationship with Jesus Christ? And those are very common. It's like, I hope so. Who knows?
Well, which is not very comforting, right? When you're talking about eternity. And that's why I love what you said about the prayer, though, because it can't be, to me, again, it can be maybe a starting point for somebody, maybe, but a lot of people get stuck there. And I think it breeds this fear of, if you're not equipped, you're then afraid to share the gospel, right? Because you don't really know how to do it or what it should look like. And so I love that you're doing this, because I think you're giving people that baseline from which they know, okay, this is what it means. This is what I'm called to do. And then they're equipped to do that. And I just want to say, in your story, before we go here, because this is really important, your father, and people should watch The Blind, and it's an incredible story, but had somebody not poured into him and shared with him, had people not rallied around him, your family could look very different right now, could it not? Your own life could look very different.
It would be completely different. I'm sure I wouldn't be talking to you right now because there wouldn't have been a television show, or, there wouldn't have been a company duck commander. So everything in life that I've done, pretty much everything has been influenced by the gospel coming into my family's life. And so, that's the deep-seated appreciation that I have for the gospel, but also to realize that had someone not shared with Phil, had someone not been intentional and done that, then, and so what it reminds me to do is talk to other people, because I never know what kind of legacy or generational change may happen just from that one conversation, to where someone says, "Hey, I I heard from this guy and he shared the gospel. I changed my life. It changed my wife, my marriage, my kids, my grandkids, and who knows down the line. And so I just realized the power of that long legacy of life that can be changed. And so that's why I think it's so important for us to share. And I just do. I think that comes from conversations that we have with people, and it's not necessarily. If you go to a church, if you visit a church and you sit, uh, I don't even know if that's the best way to convert people, because it's like, I think I'll just say this: writing this book, I would rather the church, the 1,000 people sitting in the seats or the 500 people sitting in the seats, I'd rather them be out there sharing their faith with their friends and neighbors and where they work. I think that would be more effective than just one person, preaching to that particular group. Because basically most of that is about walking the Christian life. It's not the initial. Most of the sermons that we hear are about Christians and how to stay strong and how we fellowship and work and move as a church. And so when you're talking about the initial front lines, honestly, Billy, I think most of it's out there. My dad was converted not at a church. He was converted at a bar. That's where he was first, And so I think a lot of these conversations happen, in our homes, at coffee shops, at work, for sure. Those are where the conversations can happen. And so this book is trying to help the church or that person to engage in that. Whether or not your church is fired up or excited or dull or boring or whatever, doesn't matter. People still need to be converted, and hopefully this will give them, again, some tips and clues and some scriptures for sure, maybe some inspiration, but to inspire that can go wherever. And so I think that's the message Jesus was portraying to us, was saying, hey, y'all need to go out there. Those are the three things, make disciples, baptize people, teach people, Matthew 28. And I feel like I didn't want to live my life and not be near any of those three commands. So I want to be around those in a lot of things that I do. And so that's the message.
Well, and I love too that, this is the case for any family that goes through what yours did. One person finding Jesus, it trickles through the family. In your case, you guys followed God into a hit TV show, and now you're writing books. And I mean, that gospel presentation is continuing in conversations like this in the projects you have all done over the years, from the film down the line. And there'll be much more to come. And so it really is incredible how one decision, right, based on one conversion in a bar, has sparked so much more for people across, not just, again, family, people, but really across the country and the world. And I just wanted to say that, before we go here, but the book is Gospeller: Turning Darkness into Light, one conversation at a time. Willie, appreciate your time today.
Awesome. Great talking to you, as always.